Mr. Kwok, we have Mr. Lee Kwai-wah, Senior Superintendent, Organized Crime and Triad Bureau. And then to the right of Mr. Liu, we have Mr. Wang Wai-shun, Senior Superintendent, Operations. The speakers will take turns to speak, and then the floor will be open to questions. If you wish to ask questions, please raise your hand and tell us which organizations you represent. You are limited to only 3 questions each. Mr. Kwok. Good afternoon. Well, just last week I was saying in the past few days, finally, Hong Kong enjoyed some rare moments of peace in the past few months. We thought we could have a peaceful weekend, but unfortunately, the writers did not let Hong Kong people off so easily. They totally disregarded the majority wish for peace. In the past weekend, there was again violence. On Saturday, it was in Mong Kok. On Sunday, it was in Tsim Sha Tsui, Whampoa, and Wong Kok. Let us look at the footages first. In the past weekend, rioters again blocked roads with illegal roadblocks. Again, bricks and various objects were put on the road. They also spray-painted windscreens of buses, endangering passengers. They burned items on the road. They set fires at different MTR stations. They threw petrol bombs. So some MTR stations had to be closed. Rioters again trashed various shops. They went into operating eateries and shops to trash shop facilities such as the cash tills, the sprinkler systems, and hanging lights. Citizens who were eating or shopping in those places had to flee in panic. Rioters trashed cake shops, sushi shops, fast food shops, banks, snack shops, and telecom shops, as well as restaurants. They trashed all sorts of premises. And the rioters threw rocks and petrol bombs at policemen. Last night, bricks hit the windscreen of a police vehicle for which carried police officers. Policeman's head was hit and he was injured. You can actually such attacks could be fatal. And then petrol bombs also hit a police car, and the car was lit up. But unfortunately, there was not any serious injury. Now, people ask how come it seemed that yesterday there was a peaceful protest. How come the police had to fire tear gas? Well, I must tell you what happened yesterday. The police issued a no objection notice to the procession yesterday. The route should be from Salisbury Road to the Hong Kong Coliseum. Unfortunately, some protesters deviated from the permitted route. They disregarded the warnings of the police. They walked up to the Hom Ham bypass flyover. Some rioters threw bricks and glass bottles from the flyover to the policemen under the bridge, the flyover. That's why police had to walk towards the flyover and the rioters nearby, and we fired tear gas at them. In the process, we issued many warnings. Rioters deliberately walked up to the flyover to throw things down at people. They could have killed someone. So the police took decisive action to fire tear gas, exactly because we wanted to stop the violence. This case once again proves that when there's no violence by rioters, there is no need for the police to use force to disperse them. And also, we have seen assaults of citizens. That's outrageous. Some citizens were suspected to be taking photos in the public place. They were attacked, and there were innocent citizens. There was an innocent citizen who took the initiative to clear the blockade at the junction of Nathan Road and Walcott Road, but a rioter hit him with a drain cover. His head was all bloody. Let's take a look at the footage. Now, this video, of course, is outrageous, and they shouldn't lead to any laughter. But what is most chilling is that the online media reporters gave this narration of this live broadcast. He actually said he didn't know why this victim slipped. And then some left comments on their webpage to say that this scene is therapeutic. So how many people are actually so cold-blooded and senseless in Hong Kong? I mean, who could say something this inhuman? Where's the conscience? I totally fail to see how the behavior of the rioters is related in any way to the demands. I only see a group of rioters just, venting out their emotions, the so-called ideals they have are just an excuse to cover up their criminal behavior. I must stress that it is the police's duty to enforce law. We must exercise great constraint, but then rioters kept blocking roads and we kept clearing the roads, and then rioters kept coming out to break the law. Then we must come out too to stop them or to arrest these people who are breaking the law. In the past week, Rioters did not come out to stir up any trouble, and you saw that the police had no need to use any force, including tear gas. We're fully aware of the concerns of the public. That's why we have been exercising great restraint in using our weapons. But it's the rioters who breach peace. It's not the police force. We hope the public and the media would see the facts clearly. Don't put the cart before the horse, and don't turn a blind eye to the violence. Otherwise, we will never see peace again in Hong Kong. Now, I will hand over to Mr. Kwong to tell you about the police operations during the weekend.
Well, in the police operation over the past weekend, the 3 police officers that were injured in operations and the use of ammunitions. As of the early mornings of the 2nd of December 2019, the police have not used from November 29th, have not used any ammunition. However, there's the vandalism and road blockades and throwing petrol bombs over the past weekend. So on the 30th of November, we have used 3 CS grenade CS round, 1 rubber baton round, and 1 40mm launcher. And on 1st of December 2019, the situation deteriorated. Thus, we used a 17 CS grenade or CS round, 7 rubber baton round, and 6 super sock. On arrest figures, as from early June till yesterday, we arrested a total of 5,947, which included 4,415 men and 1,532 females, aged between 11 to 83 years old. The offense include lawful assembly, rioting, possession of offensive weapon, possession of instrument fit for unlawful purposes, and arson. And over the past weekend, we have arrested a total of 8 in police operation, including 48 men and 10 women, aged between 14 to 36 years old. The offenses include unlawful assembly, possession of offensive weapon, possession of disorderly conduct in public places, criminal damage, assaulting police officers. And on court cases, on November 30th, we arrested a 15-year-old man for a spraying graffiti outside the central MTR station. And he was charged with criminal damage, and he appeared in court in the Eastern Magistracy this morning. And on 1st of December, we arrested a 32-year-old woman suspected to throwing objects at policemen in Mong Kok. She was charged with assaulting police officer, and it appeared in the West Kowloon Magistracy this morning. And I would like to talk about 2 court cases last week. In the 2016 Mong Kok riot, a woman, for his part in helping other protesters to take a break and hurling objects onto the fire, and she was convicted of taking part in riot. And last Thursday, she was sentenced in district court for 46 months prison sentence. In ruling, the judge said that anyone can fight for their ideals, including freedom and justice. However, their means are definitely restricted by the law. Even though the charged person did not directly attack our officers, the act of taking up breaks have demonstrated she have directly aided and abetted other protesters in committing illegal acts. Thus, her liability is no different than other people that have thrown bricks and other violent protesters. Another case that in June 26, and there's a large group of people surrounding the police headquarters. And in the process, we arrested a 43-year-old man, and he was suspected of spitting at our colleague and graffitiing a glass door at the front entrance of the police headquarters, and we charged with unlawful assembly, criminal damage, and assaulting police officer. And the case have concluded on last Thursday at the Eastern Magistrates Court. He was sentenced to 10 months in prison and need to compensate the cost for glass door repairs. The magistrate had made clear in his ruling that the act of defendant is as insulting and provocative and challenged the dignity of the law enforcement agency, thus cannot be condoned. The protesters aimed at paralyzing some of the law enforcement capability of the police, were directly undermining the rule of law in Hong Kong and aimed at creating chaos. Thus, we need to met out a deterrent sentence. Another case I'd like to talk about is about a criminal damage case in 7th of September. We arrested 15 and 17-year-old young people. There was a criminal damaging 3 light rail ticket selling machine and an octopus machine and a CCTV camera. The 3 criminal damage offense have been wrapped up in 19th of November in the Tuen Mun Court. They have been given a compensation order and each have to compensate the MTRCL $140,000, and that had excluded any the civil liability claims. And through these court cases, we want the public to know that the bottom line on the rule of law should not be challenged, and every member of the public should abide by the law. And we will enforce the law if anyone breaking the law. And at the end, the court will make a fair ruling. And next, I would like to make clarification. There were some rumors claiming online that the police have using alias to admit the arrested into the hospital, and will clarify there's no such thing. And those who are spreading those rumors definitely have ulterior motives and doesn't have common sense. And those who are spreading such false information is to incite the public hatred towards the police, and not just to drive a wedge between the police and community relations, with not helping with the events. And now I'll hand back to Mr. Superintendent Kwok. On yesterday's protest, somebody claimed the theme was on "Do not forget why we started." It seems that their original intention is to stir up trouble. There's some saying that black and white is about the conscience. Those with the conscience will know that the rioters act against the law and have totally overstepped the moral boundaries. And those who can tell right from wrong should not side with the rioters. The maximum liability for criminal damage is 10 years prison. And the maximum sentence for arson and the serious assault can be liable to life imprisonment, regardless of the public opinion and how much sympathy you have towards the rioters, or even condone their illegal acts. But it can't change the fact that the rioters have broken the law. The rioters act have no gray zone in the law. When we got used to it, or even feel unresponsive towards the shop being vandalized and the traffic lights being smashed and the bricks being decked, or even innocent citizens being assaulted, and even accept this new normal, could we really accept how Hong Kong has become like this? When can we enjoying peace? Can the rioters return to all citizens to Hong Kong of the past? Hong Kong is our home. If we continue to condone such illegal acts, never will there be any days of peace in our home.
Now I will summarize in English. Last 2 weeks, we enjoyed a short period of calmness before it was interrupted by another weekend of violence. Multiple districts in Kowloon descended into chaos as rioters hijacked public order events and resorted to destructive acts, like building barricades on roads, setting fires, and vandalizing public facilities. They stormed and smashed shops and restaurants in Whampoa and inflicted extensive damage to MTR stations and transport facilities. Also, some rioters hurt bricks and petrol bombs and police officers and vehicles. One brick even broke through the glass of a police vehicle and hit an officer inside. I believe most citizens in Hong Kong are also upset that violence once again returned to the city we treasure. Alarmingly, rioters took the law into their own hands and brutally beat up people with dissenting political views. In small hours today in Mong Kok, a man was attacked by a group of rioters with umbrellas as he was taking photos of them. The rioters also attempted to steal his cell phone. In the most shocking case, on Saturday night, as one middle-aged man was removing barricades in Mong Kok, a rioter struck his head with a metal cover. The attack could have been a murderous act. But what is more horrifying is that some netizens added insult to the injury and mocked the victim online. We are deeply alarmed by cases of rioters taking the law into their own hands. We strongly condemn such reckless and ruthless violence, regardless of one's motive or political stance. One may question why police deployed tear gas to disperse and authorized public possession in Tsim Sha Tsui. The truth is that although the organizer got a letter of no objection, a large number of protesters deviated from the approved route of possession. They proceed to Hong Kong bypass, where they throw bricks and glass bottles onto the officers under the bridge. As our warnings are all ignored, our officer had no choice but to use tear gas for dispersal. We stress repeatedly that police officers are in a reactive mode. If rioters did not commit dangerous or destructive acts, there's no reason for police to respond with force. Moving on to arrest figures. Since last Friday, the police arrested in total 58 people, consisting of 48 males and 10 females, aged between 14 and 36. Offences include unlawful assembly, possession of offensive weapons, and criminal damage. In conclusion, I'm positive that most people in society are tired of the rioting that has crippled Hong Kong over the past 6 months. No political slogan can glorify or justify hard crimes like arson, criminal damage, and assault. The ongoing unrest has taken a heavy toll on society. If we do not make a clear break with all radicals, everyone will be a victim. We should stop letting violence take us hostage. Keeping peace is not the sole responsibility of the police. Every person in the society can be a peace broker. It is time to let conversation replace conflict, to let dialogue replace division. Thank you.
RTHK. Thank you. Now, if I may ask about yesterday. Initially, the police issued a press release to say that there were several hundreds of rioters throwing a number of smoke bombs. But then after inquiry, you changed the press release to say that some rioters threw the smoke bombs. Why did you make that change? Was it based on facts that you make the statement? And then second question on Whampoa, some police officers accused reporters of this radio that we deliberately, try to push a police officer, but our reporters were wearing the reflective vest. So can you tell us more about the third question? Is the Commissioner of Police said that they will consider whether to issue no objection notices for the next for the next few processions. But now that you have deployed tear gas, maybe you would object to those other processions. Now, yesterday, first about our press release or information we gave out on social media Now, the aim was to give timely updates and advice to the public so they know that what's going on during public events, especially if there is any danger. We want to tell people not to go near the area, or for those people already in the area, then they could be properly prepared. Now, about what happened yesterday, let me recap again briefly. Now, at the time, there were a large number of people who deviated from the permitted route. They went up to the flyover of Hong Kong bypass. They threw bricks and objects at our colleagues who were underneath the bridge, the flyover. Now, the police then issued warnings, but they disregarded warnings, so we had no other alternative but to use minimum force, including tear gas, to try to disperse them. Now, we gave out timely updates, and it was based on the reports given by colleagues on the site. And that's why yesterday we sent out certain messages. But actually, the whole purpose of the message was to warn the public not to go near the area. And I must stress that for rioters who attacked our colleagues from high above, what they did was really dangerous and reckless. Apart from our colleagues who were present, there were also many reporters or just members of the public. So if they threw objects down the flyover like that, people could have gotten injured, and the consequences could be dire. Another question is about the RTHK reporter. It happened last night. Let me give you some background first. At around 11 p.m., our colleagues were doing sweeping in Whampoa. There was an RTHK reporter who had who was engaged in some pushing, shoving with our colleagues. Now, the information we got was that our colleagues stopped the reporter to ask questions and to do a search. And after the information was registered, the reporter was allowed to leave. Now, I must stress that the police have great respect for press freedom and reporters' rights and freedoms to cover news. But we must stress that such coverage must be done in a way that it doesn't get in the way of the police operations. At the time, our media communication team colleague came to give assistance. As soon as it was confirmed that it was just a misunderstanding, the matter was cleared up, and then the reporter was allowed to leave very soon. But if I may take this opportunity to say this to reporters, we've said it before. Now, when police officers are working in the front line, I hope there will be better coordination with reporters. Please try to avoid coverage at close range, because we've seen from the past that it could be dangerous to both our officers and reporters. So it's actually in the interest of both parties if you do coverage some distance away. And if necessary, our media communications team will help you. Third point, that is about the coming weekend. The Civil Human Rights Front and other groups are applying to stage public events. Now, usually when we receive an application about a public event, we will get in touch with the organizer to find out about the details, and then we'll do our own intelligence gathering and then do a risk assessment. Of course, we would also consider the risk of a public event in the light of what happened over the weekend. And then we will see what the situation is like in the next few days, and then we will decide what is the best way to then we will then liaise with the organizer and we'll come to the best decision. Now, we want to maintain public safety, but at the same time we want to allow the public a chance to exercise their freedom of speech. Now, did rioters ever fire smoke bombs at you, as you mentioned? Because today you did not mention smoke bombs at all. Let me stress again. Now we give out news update because we want to give clear advice and information to the public so they could then decide what they want to do with their plans. Now, at the time, we received reports from colleagues on the scene, and that's the information we had. But what I must stress again, our purpose is really to ensure public safety and order. There's nothing more I'd like to say. Stand News.
Stand News. The question on news gathering. Yesterday, while reporting, and our team have been pulled away by the FMLC, the media liaison team, and the mouth covered, or even have the mouth being hit, and the uniformed officers had been hitting. And after the 2008 Li Keqiang visit, it's been established that the police should not use their hand in touching the press equipment. Why is still happening? Is that a step back? And yesterday, on the TST public procession, when the police were releasing tear gas, there were still a lot of members of the public still wearing masks, or rather young children and old persons. While using force, the police consider, other than the act of the rioters, we consider the condition of other participants, or in order to curb the violence, to arrest the rioters, regardless of how many children or the elderly at the scene, whether they are wearing masks or not, and you will still use tear gas. Third question. As Christianity Commissioner took office, I noticed that the operation wings have director operations with Mr. Kwok Yam-yong, and he was the commander for the New Territories North Region Commander, and it was the top brass for the July 21st, and his ascension. And is that representative police views that he is not responsible for anything for the July 21st? I will first answer the first and the third part of the question on the use of the consideration factors for using tear gas and whether the public safety will be considered. I'll defer to Mr. Wong on that. As for the incident cited by the reporter, I have prepared the relevant information. And yesterday afternoon, at around 5:30 or 5:40 in the afternoon, in response to a large group of protesters being assembled, and we have to conduct dispersal along Nathan Road. And on the intersection of Nathan Road and Beijing Road, we have set up a cordon line for our operations. And our reporter at that moment was standing inside on our cordon line. Thus, our colleague, including the media liaison team with a blue vest, a female colleague, and told the reporter and asking her to leave, and did not commit the acts as mentioned by you. And after communicating with the person that there was inside the police cordon line and wanted him to leave, and all along we have been respecting the right of the press covering scene and also the duty. Thus, we have dispatched the media liaison team to the scene. And at 2015, after adopting the suggestions from the media organizations, we have set up this liaison team. In the past 6 months, the different stakeholders in Hong Kong, whether for police or the press, have been under great stress. And while at work, we also came across different challenges. Well, as the Chief Superintendent of TPRB, he just assumed office, I would like to listen to the views of the media, and hopefully in the coming days, we also want our frontline colleagues to the difficulties of the press covering major public events. Hopefully, on the basis of mutual respect, we can each do our job in a role in society. As for the third question, we have reported the progress on individual cases, including on the Yulong, July 21st. And we had provided update earlier. We have arrested 37 persons and charged 6 of those. As far as we know, that some of the cases already entered judicial proceedings, and some of the investigation is still ongoing. Thus, we will not make a detailed commentary on those, and there's nothing to add to your question. As for the use of tear gas, I'll defer to Mr. Wang. Okay, thank you for your second question. I'll take this chance to condemn the rioters. So despite the presence of the elderly and the young children at the scene and still commit such acts, so the elderly couldn't walk quick and they smashed the traffic lights and they couldn't cross the road. I'm sure you saw yesterday. The young children were peacefully expressing confusion and see broke barricades and vandalism and assault. I believe you're teaching the young a very bad lesson. On the use of force by police, please don't think that the tear gas and the police press already the first step of the use of force. For a peaceful assembly, it will all abide by the rules. There's no need for the police to be there. Or the police presses will not intervene the assembly. We just want to observe and try to help out if there's such need arises. When there come problems, we have no choice to use the minimum necessary force to take into account of the elderly and the young, what are our challenges. That's why you see, notice why have all the large group of people and yet you refuse to disperse it with tear gas? Why are you just issuing warnings? Why are you giving verbal advice? Why are you dispersing the others and some elderly can cross your cordon line? That's the difficulty for the officers on the ground, and also the key on handling situation. I would like to take this chance to request all protesters to stop using violence. Not just the rioters are at the scene, there are other, for example, the elderly, the children, and the parents hoping to bring their children to this public event to express their views. Hopefully they can express their views peacefully. And for all family members, if the situation becomes dangerous or you notice there'll be rioters or people looking like rioters, hope they can leave as soon as possible. You should listen to the police instructions and leave this risky unseen. Thus, you will be able to enhance your own safety. Whatever FMLC or the uniformed officers, they should not blocking the press cameras. Reiterate that the police all along when respecting the press covering the event. I know that you have a duty to report the situation on the ground. So now, since I officially assumed office, I will contact the media so that I can find out the difficulty of reporters on the ground. I also want to talk to my own team. So while discharging their duty, what are the views on the media on the ground? I want to take this chance to especially on the scene of the conflict, to iron out the differences. Now.
Yes, the first question. The police said that the protesters walked onto the roads, but shouldn't the police take responsibility for that? Because you saw there was a large number of people, but you didn't do anything to try to, can you please use the microphone? The interpreters can't hear you. Second question. Now, the police said that there were people throwing smoke bombs, causing public panic. That's why you had to deploy tear gas. But as you deploy tear gas, weren't you worried that for this protest with 380,000 people, it could lead to chaos? And also in Tsim Sha Tsui East, when you tried to disperse the people, there was an old lady who came forward to tell the police not to use paper spray. How come she was already kneeling down and she was not using force, but still the police pushed her to the ground? Would the police apologize for that? Thank you. Let me take the first question, and then Mr. Wong may supplement. And then for the second question about the smoke bomb and the deployment of tear gas, I will ask Mr. Wong to take the question. And for the Chim Tung East case, Mr. Kong will answer that. Now, of course, the police have the duty and role to ensure the safety of public events. But then more importantly, when organizers discuss with us, they tell us the estimated number of participants, and also they choose the route. They also play an important role, especially during the public event. The organizers have their own picketing team line to manage the procession, and no one would like to see a deviation from the planned route. So, for organizers of public events, they must also shoulder the responsibility and manage the procession properly. Because if they organize everything properly, then that will greatly facilitate the event. Now, Mr. Wong, now you said that the police have duty. Definitely, the police have duty here, because every day the police would try to find out about applications on public processions and rallies. We will see how we could try to help the public express their views. But for organizers of the events, they have the duty to cooperate with the police. And we talk about crowd management and crowd control. Crowd management means before chaos breaks out, there must be corresponding measures to deal with that. In the experience of the police and in our risk assessment, we believe that there is a high chance that some danger may arise, then we will immediately tell the organizer not to do that, or they would have to change what they are doing. But if they do not cooperate with us, then from experience and from risk assessment, there would be a serious liability. And it happens often because they don't cooperate, and so everybody is exposed to higher risk. So I can tell you from the very beginning, the police never shied away from our duty, but we want people to work with us. Smoke bomb. Now, we are talking about, why are we so concerned when there are big crowds? Because if something should, come up in a peaceful protest or rally, it could lead to public panic, and there could be much danger, and people may be hurt, and we don't want to see that. That's why the police are very careful. And so when you organize rallies, please try to avoid this risk. And if there are such risks, as Mr. Kwok pointed out, we will tell you in the first instance through various channels. We'll tell you stop doing it, don't come near or leave. Now, at the end, why did we deploy tear gas? It was because there was already much violence. Now, you seem to have the wrong impression that, they have a public procession, so we shouldn't use tear gas. But in a major procession, there were people throwing bricks and petrol bombs. And is that a peaceful gathering? And do the police have the legal duty to stop that? That is, with their petrol bombs, they could hurt other people. And if that's the case, you will ask the question why the police have not stopped them. So please do appreciate there are great difficulties in managing a public event. And then when the police enforcing the law, we hope to have your support and cooperation. Thank you. Third question. Now, from the information I have at hand, it was yesterday afternoon near Tsim Sha Tsui East, there was a public event. At around 5 p.m., the location should be the Tsim Sha Tsui East station. operation. At the time, our colleagues were carrying out a dispersal operation. According to our colleagues, there were about 2 to 3 people who walked up to our colleagues. They tried to stop our colleagues from continuing with the dispersal operation. Yes, it's true. During that process, there was a physical contact. Now, our colleague held a police baton in front of his chest. The aim was to prevent these people from continuing to obstruct our dispersal operation. Now we saw the scene, and there was this lady. I saw it actually only on TV. There was this old lady who knelt in front of our colleagues, and then our colleagues continued to carry the police baton in front of their chest, and they were just in an alert position. Because they weren't sure if those people would take further action or how things might develop. They weren't sure. So at the time, our colleagues were holding the police baton in front of the West. For both parties, they moved their hands. Now, in the process, did we push that person by mistake? Well, that's something we need to follow up on. What I would like to say is this. In the past 2 months, very often in our dispersal operations, we will see people using various reasons, like they wanted to defend others, or they try to advise both parties to exercise restraint or whatever. They use various reasons, or sometimes they held hands and stood on our dispersal route, and that is not at all desirable because they will get in the way of our colleagues doing their work. Now, is it the case that because they're standing there, then we won't do what we're doing? No. Very often, our colleagues would just warn them, please move away, so the police could carry on with their operations. Or they would do it, as I just mentioned, they would hold the police baton in front of the chest. So this is a movement just to show them, or just to tell them, no, you must really walk away. So it doesn't matter what role people play. I hope they are not rioters, of course, but whether they are by passers-by, reporters, or protesters, please do not stand in the way of our operation. We would give warnings to ask you to leave. We would ask you not to stand on the route of our operation as we move forward. Now, if there are people who deliberately block us, or they stand in front of us to block us, and in the process there is any physical contact and someone falls and is injured, this is not something we want to see. So I must make this appeal once again. For whatever reasons, please do not stand in front of the police to obstruct our work. If anyone is not happy in the process, we welcome, and that person actually has the right to lodge a complaint. Thank you. If I may sum up, there were 3 questions asked. They were all about public events and how police law enforcement or operations may affect people on the scene. Now, that included the deployment of tear gas and so on. Now, yesterday there were several public events, not just one. There were other public events on the Hong Kong Island. They all went peacefully, so we never had to deploy force. How come in this case there was a need to deploy tear gas and to disperse the crowd? It's exactly because during the event, some rioters carried out violent acts with no regard to other citizens at the site. They threw bricks and so on. So if they did not resort to violence, we would not have to use force. We do appreciate that when we use force, it may affect others on the scene. So that's why we must ask reporters to reflect on their behavior. What you do is not just unlawful. You are also affecting others taking part in a peaceful event at the scene. So please stop breaking the law. Please don't do anything that will harm other citizens. SMP?
So my first question is about the use of tear gas during the rally, where there were many elderly people and young children. And you have said that it's because the protesters used smoke bombs or were throwing things from high places. But why would you still use tear gas when there are old people around and when there are young children around? And how does tear gas affect them? Does it hurt them more? And the second question is about the video of the old lady being pushed, and also there was another video, I think later in the night, of a group of young women who were not dressed like protesters. They were dressed like they were going shopping, and but they were being searched. What are the grounds for them being searched, and what is the justification for pushing an old lady to the ground? And finally, I would like to follow up on the incident, the stampede in Yamate. About 3 days ago, HK Leng Yat had an investigation which found that there was indeed a stampede. Do you have any response to that? Thank you.
So regarding the first question, I will ask Mr. Wong to answer it. And then for the second and third part, regarding the old lady and the young woman, I will ask Mr. Gong to handle it. For the last part of the question, we already answered these questions several times in the previous press conference. We don't have any further comments to add. So, Mr. Wong, please.
Okay, thank you. Regarding to your first questions about using tear gas, even those rioters in front of us have elderly and also the children there. Am I right? So, I would like to explain. Police have no choice. Police have no choice. We will not use force if there's no violence in front of us, right? Before we use the force, we will give the warning. And people there have their responsibility and have their duties to cooperate to police. Leave there, right? The main problem is why people bring these people in. Do they care about their children? Do they care about this elderly? Right? I'm not saying elderly is a problem. I'm not saying the children is a problem. But if the situation turns violent, I don't think I don't think a good people should stay there. Right? So if the rioters start to cause problems, start to cause troubles, they should depart as soon as possible. I think that's a common sense, and that's a logic, and that's what we teach our children, because they should not break the law. They have to follow the rules. Right? That's the rules of law in Hong Kong. That's why the police will use CS. Right? Before I pass the second questions to Mr. Gong, you mentioned about the stop and search. I would like to tell you, police is not work on dress code. Right? There's no dress code for the protester. If there's a group of people, the police suspect they commit any offense, we'll do the stop and search. It's very normal. Right? Last night, I'm on duties. I saw there's a many stop and search conduct in Mong Kok. It's because there's a blockage happened there, and police would like to avoid some direct confrontations. So before they turn to violence, we do some high-profile stop and search. During the stop and search, we successfully arrest some guys with the blade, with knife in their pocket, with petrol bomb, with danger drug, with spanner or hammer in their rucksack. All right? And also, after the stop and search in the vicinities of the stop and search locations, we successfully seized 3 rucksacks with 11 petrol bomb. That's the problem, right? That also reflects how effective we do the stop and search before we have the confrontations. I know not all of us will agree. To be stop and search is a very good way, or very happy to be stop and search by police. But police is doing something, helping to hold the public safety and helping to ensure the public order. I hope everybody can cooperate to us and help us to do it. Thank you.
Okay, concerning the question about the incident happened at the Tsim Sha Tsui East MTR station. Actually, because of the violent incident in the nearby procession earlier, at that time the police was conducting a dispersal operation at the Tsim Sha Tsui East MTR station, one of the exits, during which we encounter 2 or 3 people who are trying to obstruct our way or to block our way of dispersal. At that time, our officer were holding a baton in front of their chest, and our officer walked towards the lady with intent to block her way and to minimize her obstruction to our ongoing dispersal operations. And as you can see from the video, suddenly the woman kneeled down, and our officer at that time still held his baton in front of his chest. And as I could see from the video, they had body contact before she fell onto the ground. This was an unintended result, which we didn't want to see. But I have to emphasize that in the past few months, doing our dispersal or different kind of operation, we encounter a lot of situations that some people, no matter they call themselves, sometimes they call themselves, they are safeguarding some people on the ground, or they are trying, at the moment, they are trying to persuade the police not to use any force. However, as a matter of fact, they were obstructing the dispersal operation of the police. And sometimes they even do it in group, holding their hand in hand to form a line to block our way. May I take this opportunity to appeal for the cooperation from everybody during this kind of dispersal operation. If anyone could stand in front of us, trying to block our way during our dispersal operation, we have to give them warning to leave, and if they ignore our warning, we may take necessary action to push them away. And of course, we do not want to see any person get hurt during any of our operation. Regarding the incident that you mentioned, if the person concerned she feels dissatisfied, she has the right to lodge a complaint to our Complaint Against Police Office. Thanks.
Hi. 新华
Xinhua News Agency.
你好，新华社记者提问有3个问题。第一个是警方在
Good afternoon, I'm from Xinhua. I have 3 questions. So the police have made 1,000 arrests at PolyU, and what investigation had taken place? And what kind of investigation will take place? And also, you just mentioned on the 11th of November, and someone had broke the law, and what investigation have you conducted? And how many cases of mob assault in total? As for those who took justice into their own stand, the police have taken them seriously. Besides vigorously condemn this riotous acts and disregarding human life and this cold-blooded behavior, will use all resources to investigate each of the complaints. We also hope that those at the scene and if the public have any information, please provide them to us. As for the details, I'll defer to Mr. Lee. As for the progress on the PolyU investigation, so for the PolyU, we have arrested 831 people, but 318 have the details registered and yet to have been arrested, and they're more on the young side. Even for the 318 persons, since their age, which have made the criminally liable, those we will deal with them as a whole. So the 3 directions. First, took it, compared the video evidence and compared it against the evidence that we collected when we entered the campus. Simply put, let's say for comparing the fingerprints, we'll also take witness statements for evidence. After this stage, we'll seek the advice from the DOJ to see which persons will be charged and how they will be handled, and also their charges. As for the question on mob assault, since we do not have a tally figure on this kind of cases, because in some of the cases after being assaulted they were too frightened and did not report it to the police. However, I want to say that the police attach great importance to every one of these cases. Let me set an example. On August 23rd, it was a male reported being assaulted, and 4 had already been arrested. On the 4th of September, in the Amoy Garden shopping mall, we had arrested 3 persons for assault those with different political views. And in Sun Shui Po, a taxi driver being assaulted on 6th of October, we arrested 1 person. And more recent, and on 11th of November, an old man being doused with fire outside Monchan Station, 2 persons have been arrested. The police have taken this case very seriously, and the victim please come forward and report it to us, and after being reported, we'll investigate it thoroughly. Commercial radio.
想問下咧，就係第一條就係即係。
Including today. In 2 days in a row, there were goldsmiths which were robbed. And then in many busy junctions in Kowloon, many traffic lights are not working, but there are no police there to maintain order. So people were saying that law and orders become worse. They worry that they will be robbed. So for patrolling duties and traffic policing duties, are you doing less of that? Are you going to how are you going to restore confidence, or would you still want to make sure there are no policemen on present? Now, as for that traffic police officer who rammed his motorcycle into the crowd, we heard that he's already been reinstated. Now, but then you said before that was a serious case. How come he's no longer suspended? How are you handling that case? Another questions about another police officer suspended. There was a police officer who fired rubber bean bags at the reporters of our station. Has he been reinstated? Can you tell us about his case? Last question. Now, about the case of pushing an old lady to the ground at Tsim Sha Tsui East, I watched that video footage repeatedly. At that time, that lady who was kneeling there did not move her hands. The police officer used both hands to push her, and then the woman was actually not obstructing the police officer. There was plenty of room for the police officer to walk past her. So what was the purpose of pushing her to the ground? Did the police officer misuse force? Well, you asked quite a number of questions. Now, first about the law and order situation, the robbery case recently of a jewelry shop. I will ask Mr. Lee to answer the question. For the other cases, I will deal with them later. First, about those 2 cases of goldsmith robbery. One happened yesterday on the 1st of December. In To Kwa Wan, at about 3:45 p.m., there were 2 Chinese males carrying knives and hammers who walked into the goldsmith and and robbed $2 billion worth of gold. And then the other case was this morning at around 11 a.m. at Cheung Sha Wan, Castle Peak Road. There were 4 men carrying knives and hammers. They robbed the shop of about $3 million worth of gold jewelry. Now, the reporter said that people were concerned that law and order has become worse. So let's look at some figures. Let's look at the figures now and compare those with the figures earlier on. Say in 2018, in the full year, we had 147 cases of robbery. So in other words, on average 2 to 3 robbery every 2 to 3 days there's a robbery. And then for November this year, we haven't got the figures yet. In 1 month, we have 28 cases of robbery. In other words, 1 robbery case each day. Yes, you can do your own arithmetic. You know there's a rather significant increase in robbery cases. Well, perhaps we could look at it from the point of view of criminal investigation. Why has there been such a change? You know, for criminals or thieves, when they carry out such a crime, they usually consider 2 factors. One, whether they're going to make gains. Of course, you will be able to gain much from a goldsmith shop. The second question is whether there's a chance of him being arrested. Usually, that's what's on the mind of a criminal. Now, the reporter just said that is it the case now there is no more police presence on the street? No, that is not the case. We still have police presence at the community level. But of course, if I tell you that we're maintaining the same level of police presence as in the past, you wouldn't believe me either. Now, in the past, we have relied heavily on beat patrolling to make sure the community is safe. For example, if you see someone acting suspiciously, the police may show up. Or maybe security guards see some suspicious figures, they may inform the police. And then we could do interception and searches, and then that's why we're able to keep the community very safe. And another point that's of even greater concern is about people's awareness to abide by the law. You know, we have seen research literature saying that there is this copycat effect. Now, we are afraid that there may be more violent crimes such as homicides, serious wounding, or rapes even because of the copycat effect. People, copying violence acts. So we have to go back to the peace and order we used to enjoy, and then we'll be very confident in maintaining law and order. Well, as Ms. Lee said, that's why we keep stressing to the public that you must not tolerate and condone violence, because violence would only breed more violence. And from the figures, we could see that we don't rule out the possibility that some criminals are taking advantage of the situation to commit crimes. Now, we are devoting so much of our manpower and resources to deal with violent cases, so our colleagues are already working far longer hours than before. It's because we want to maintain the same level of law and order, but it's not just the police. We need the support and the assistance of the public as well. So please, members of the public, distance yourself from violence. Don't condone violence. Work together with us to stop violence so we can restore order in society. And for those cases you mentioned, there's been some progress. Mr. Kong will report on that. First, on the 11th of November, that the case of a police officer riding a motorcycle. The NT-South Regional Traffic Squad is now looking into the case. Because the motorcycle might cause danger to those at the scene, so this is a traffic case. And 2 days ago, as you mentioned, the commissioner said that officer has been reinstated, has already resumed duty. Another case is 11th of November in the early morning. There were violent cases in Mongkok Road, Nathan Road. People were throwing petrol bombs and so on. The police carried out dispersal, and there was a reporter there, and there was an incident involving the reporter. In the process, our colleague fired a a round of beanbag bullet. I understand the West Kowloon colleagues are now looking into the case. They've already taken a statement from the colleague concerned. Last week, the colleague has resumed his duty. But I must stress here, now our colleagues have resumed the duty doesn't mean that's the end of our follow-up work. Yesterday, in the afternoon, our colleague, had some physical contact with a woman outside the Tsim Sha Tsui East Station. Well, I mentioned that earlier. If someone had a physical contact with our colleagues and becomes injured, that is not something we want to see. And I've explained the whole case to you already, because at the time there was a public event near Tsim Sha Tsui East and someone resorted to violence. Our colleagues therefore had to carry out a dispersal operation. And then when they reached Tsim Sha Tsui East Station, there were several persons obstructing our officers from carrying out the dispersal. They stood in front of us. You might think that's a passive obstruction, but then their intention was obvious. We saw at the time our colleagues warned those people to leave. They wouldn't leave. And so, as I said earlier, our colleagues held their police baton in front of them. They tried to disperse those people. Now, you said that person knelt down, and after that, was there any actual physical contact or pushing and shoving? I mentioned that too. Now, if the person feels aggrieved in any way, she could lodge a complaint in line with our established mechanism. Ming Pao.
I'd like to follow up on the yesterday procession. I see that yesterday the police had released the first tear gas at around after 4:30. The first press release claimed that there were petrol bombs being thrown, smoke bomb thrown. So, and you said you act on the information told by frontline officers, and you claimed there were smoke bomb release. But have anyone ever thrown smoke bombs? And then you claim that there were bricks being thrown by the flyover. And from my colleagues on the ground, no one saw this kind of conflict. Can you confirm have this ever took place? Because the police in the press briefing have like to release show the footage. And can you show any proof to back up what you claim? And in order to highlight the legitimacy of your use of tear gas, and you claim the police have duty coordinate with the organizer, with the protest. You see those 380 people taking part in this rally, and what have the police have done to direct the flow so that those in the South Street Road can get to the end point? And for an old lady at the TST East Station, and now the commercial radios also reported also claimed that, and there were a lot of space to get through. And would you consider apologizing to the public and to that old lady?
咁首先就我先處理咗
I first answered the first and the second question. I'll see if Mr. Kong can answer the third question, but he probably have replied quite many times. For the information released at PVRB, the one single objective of whether those who took part in the public event or other members of the public can grasp the situation on the ground so as to allow them to arrange their own activities. In the process, we rely on the frontline officers to report to us the situation on the ground. Of course, at the command room, we also do assessment based on live streaming. And we process, we want to provide timely information. Thus, we want to release the information as soon as possible. If there is some time gap, we welcome media. If we have such information, you can just tell us right away where we can make revisions or clarifications. However, the purpose remains that since we need to release the information so quickly so as to consider the public interest, especially those who took part in the public event. Let's say maybe at the tail end of the procession, the public are aware of what's happening out front so that they can know what's going on, so that they can make their own arrangements. Maybe in yesterday's procession, there's some of the old, elderly, and the young children in the group. And we welcome people any age to take part in a peaceful assembly and procession. However, we make sure they are fully informed to take care of their own safety so that the parents will know what's happening and make the arrangements. That's the purpose. And based on what we saw on the procession from TST to Hong Kong, at its peak, there are 16,000 people. We've been closely communicating with the organizer and requested them to provide suitable numbers of wardens. So while maintaining close communication, we make arrangements on the agreed procession route. Unfortunately, when we get to the flyover, some of the protesters refuse to stick to the agreed route, which led to the series of events that ensued. And let's not talk about some of the rioters take advantage of this. You can take a look at their gear. If they plan to take part in a peaceful assembly and a procession, why do they wearing like this? Do they want to take roadblocks or serve trouble to this event? We should all condemn this riotous act instead of blaming on police use of the tear gas. I know the public is quite concerned on tear gas. For the past period, we've been acting very restrained, especially yesterday. For the series of public events, you didn't see the use tear gas in other public events because due to these riotous acts, we need to respond with necessary force and maintain a safe distance. Those bricks might kill. And some of the rioters are attacking leaving police cars. And even if the policeman inside the vehicle was hurt when the brick was smashed the police vehicle. I hope that you can just not put the cart before the horse. Anything to add on the TST incident? I've said it many times. The whole incident probably it happened out of inadvertence, which gave rise to something we don't want to see. I have nothing to add. AM 730. First question on body searches. We see the policemen have their face covered. From what we see in the footage, it's hard to see whether the police officer is a male or female. What the police consider while conducting search on the female, some people may not know what the gender of the officer. Well, can you add some identifier to tell what the policeman is male or female to reduce this misunderstanding and resolve on the footage? And another question on uniform. We see there are more policemen adding more stickers, for example, stop charging or release tear gas and so on. Were these badges actually officially issued by the policemen, and otherwise how were they able to put these badges onto the uniform? And on the RTHK question, and yesterday TST procession, did you really see smoke bombs being thrown?
The first two parts, and Mr. Wong will take that, and I will take the third question. Thank you for your suggestion. Well, you're not the only one who are concerned. I am very concerned about that too. First of all, there shouldn't be any sex discrimination. Now, even though there is no sex discrimination, of course we want officers of same sex to touch someone to avoid any misunderstanding. Now, your suggestion has been floated before. We've considered it, but in terms of the safety of police officers, we have to consider it as well. Let's say we have female officers carrying out duties, but maybe rioters target them to harm them, and who would safeguard my colleagues? And also, when it comes to interception and search, as long as we don't touch the body or say we just want to see what's in the bag, I think it's fine even for an officer of an opposite sex to look at your bag. But of course, if it's a body bag, or then we'll have to consider whether it should be handled by an officer of same sex. Yes, your suggestion is good, but then our concern, worry is that when our colleagues get in touch with the person under search, they would know very well whether the person is a man or the officer is a man or a woman, because they can tell by their voice or their attitude. Or my colleague will say that I'm a female officer, I'm not going to search you. And most importantly, for all powers we deploy, there would be records of that. So for interception and searches have been done in Hong Kong for many years, so we know how it works. And then you say you found stickers on helmets and uniforms of our colleagues. I will perhaps look at it from a human point of view. It's now 170 plus days since our colleagues have been working long hours under immense stress. They face questions every day from reporters why they're doing this or that, and then there are members of the public who are not happy about what our officers do, and they demand explanations. And then some colleagues would just like to keep up the team spirit, or they just want to show each other support. For some of the unit emblems or so on, they are shown there. I don't see anything wrong with that. But of course, the management will also remind colleagues not to do anything that may hamper their operation, and most definitely they must not cause any misunderstanding. Say, if there are certain things that could lead to misunderstanding, we will review it from time to time. We will also remind our frontline colleagues not to do so as far as possible, because if we do so and it leads to any misunderstanding, it will just affect our work. And that would definitely tarnish our image, and it will not allow us to work even more smoothly, so I'm sure they will understand it. Mr. Wong, yes, this reporter from the cable TV, please, it's not your turn to ask question. You can continue, please, to the next question. Now, there's a question again about the Tsim Sha Tsui case. Let me stress once again, when we give out this information, there is only one purpose, because we want the public to know about the situation at the scene in terms of public safety. And we base the statement on information reported to us by colleagues on site. Now, I must stress that it doesn't matter whether they're throwing smoke bombs or bricks or glass bottles. If they throw it from a height, it could be fatal. It could kill someone. And it's not just the police officers. There are also members of the public and reporters present. So out of public safety concerns, we would like to appeal to the public to pay attention. And that's the only purpose of that. I have nothing further to add. That's the end of the press conference.